Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Camila Williams. Thank you for joining us. Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs joined State United Democracy Center and Arizona election observers to discuss the latest on ongoing audit in Maricopa County. The GOP-dominated state Senate ordered that the county's 2.1 million votes be recounted by hand last month, and Democrats are still concerned about the validity behind its observers, and officials believe this audit process, ran by the firm Cyber Ninjas, is unprecedented. Hobbs says this audit was just a fundraising stunt for the Republican Party. But in a special meeting for the Maricopa County vote audit yesterday, Republicans raised their concerns about election integrity.
It's dangerous not only in the fact that Cyber Ninjas is inexperienced, they're making things up as they go along, but what we observed is that every day these procedures, these practices continue to change and evolve, and it's alarming.
We are struggling as to how we're going to be able to match up ballots sent to be duplicated with the ballots that were duplicated if one of those, the originals, are missing that 6-digit number.
The audit has been paused due to high school graduation ceremonies at the Veterans Memorial Coliseum, but is set to go back on May 24th. The Navajo Nation has now surpassed Cherokee to become the largest U.S. tribe. The Navajo Nation has by far the largest landmass of any Native American tribe in the country. Now it's boasting the largest enrolled population too. The number grew to nearly 400,000 as a result of payments made to individual Navajos for hardships during the pandemic. The tribe now tops the Cherokee's nation enrollment of 392,000. But a tribal spokesperson says the Oklahoma tribe is also growing. The U.S. Treasury Department will use tribes' own enrollment figures to pay out a chunk of the $20 billion set aside for them in the latest viral relief funding package. The tribes have until Monday to submit the data online. Asylum seekers are being released by Immigration and Customs Enforcement in rural areas of Arizona and leaving it up to other organizations to give them help. I spoke with some asylum coordinators to explain how asylum seekers are receiving the support they need from non-governmental organizations.
This is Casalitas, a shelter in Tucson serving migrant families who have left their home country to escape violence and poverty. After taking office in January of this year, President Joe Biden issued an executive order ending the Migrant Protection Protocol and other policies enacted by the Trump administration. Program manager Diego Pina Lopez says that asylum seekers feel different emotions once they arrive at the shelter after being detained by Border Patrol.
Once people get to know us and are sitting with us and sharing some laughs, we could, and some tears too, we build more of a community.
The policy was used to keep certain asylum seekers from coming into the United States and wait in Mexico until their asylum hearing in the United States immigration courts, according to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. After the executive order, many asylum seekers were released from U.S. Border Protection and taken to other nonprofit shelters, says Community Engagement Coordinator Stanford Prescott of International Rescue Committee.
It's worth noting that depending on the specific family units, they may have different journeys. So one of the other groups that's been in the news a lot is unaccompanied children. Unaccompanied children go through a separate process as opposed to single adults or families, which include adults and children.
Border Patrol releases asylum-seeking families who are detained at their facilities are then dropped off in Ajo, Yuma, or here at Casalitas in Tucson by ICE. Diego Pina Lopez says they stay here for about 1 to 3 days with food, clothing, and a bed to sleep on before volunteers help them get a flight to their sponsors in other states.
You know, I think honestly the families are such heroes, and you know, it gives me something to look towards, to try to be better towards, you know.
Although he may not feel like a hero to some of the families here at Casalitas, Pina Lopez and the volunteers are giving them a fresh start to a better life. In Tucson, Camila Williams, Cronkite News.
Shelters across Arizona are seeing about 30 to 60 families each day they are dropped off at a shelter. At IRC, Prescott says they served 3,700 people since 2021 and 2,500 in just the month of March alone. And today, Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs sent an official letter to the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, accusing him of violating federal law by releasing illegal immigrants into the United States. Congressman Biggs is demanding that the officials immediately begin implementing the law and answering questions from members of Congress. In the letter, he said that Biden administration refusals to address the chaos at the southern border is causing the crisis to worsen each day. The Colonial Pipeline, the system that lets shippers schedule fuel deliveries, says that a key communication system is back online after an hours-long outage on Tuesday. The company previously said an internal server went down, which knocked the communication system offline. Colonial said the disruption was part of its ongoing restoration process and wasn't related to the recent ransomware attack. The pipeline was shut down for 6 days last week because of a cyber attack. The company says it's now moving refined fuels at normal levels and the gas prices should be leveling out. And now, a look back at some of our stories from our Borderlands team. From efforts to help endangered animals cross the border to how animations are helping connect the Latinx community to health information.
Ever since President Biden's 60-day review on border wall construction ended 2 weeks ago, some wildlife advocates are urging the White House to remove portions of the wall. Cronkite News reporter Emma Vandenheide shares about one group's proposal to preserve biodiversity in the borderlands. Emma?
The controversy over the border wall is nothing new. For migrants, it is a barrier to get to the United States. However, activists are urging authorities to remove part of the wall due to another factor they say is causing harm. Migrants aren't the only ones stuck at the U.S.-Mexico border.
We see things like species coming to the wall and not being able to cross.
Jaguars, ocelots, javelinas, all caught behind construction for a man-made wall in the San Bernardino region.
I see that striking contrast of before and after when some of the most beautiful places in the region, have been turned into construction sites and dump pits.
To change this, Ron Pulliam created Borderlands Restoration, a network of organizations aimed at rebuilding a biodiverse habitat for wildlife at the border.
Really, investing in restoration is investing in the future of an arid region.
Thomas Sisk is a partner on that project. Their goal is to increase animal traffic without decreasing safety.
We're not, as a group, we're not advocating simply just tear the wall down. We're advocating that there are strategic places where the removal of the wall could benefit wildlife greatly and have very little impact on security.
If border wall construction continues, an estimated 93 threatened and endangered species will be affected, according to a report from the Center of Biological Diversity. 40 of those species are located specifically in Arizona.
And the wildlife are just sitting around not being able to cross in many places in a time when it's critical that there are ways to get across the border for species during times of climate change.
Now that Biden's 60-day border wall construction review is over, wildlife groups are curious to see what will happen next. The network backed a letter sent by the former secretaries of the Interior to Biden about their goals, but no response has been made yet. Despite this, Sisk believes working together with the government will create the effective change they're looking for.
This isn't just about wildlife, and it's not just about the economy, or it's not just about justice. All of these issues are tied together. You can't separate them out and hope to make progress. We have to take a more comprehensive approach.
The network also has proposed to rebuild different areas of the border wall so that the barriers are more animal-friendly and allow for water to easily pass through. If you want to learn more about their efforts, you can visit their website at borderlandsrestoration.org. In the studio, Emma Vandenheide, Cronkite News.
The coronavirus pandemic highlighted many pre-existing disparities within communities of color, but one seems to rise above the rest: housing inequity. Cronkite News reporter Kelly Donahue explains what this issue looks like in Arizona and how the president is looking to solve it.
Did you know that homeownership rates for Black, Latino, and Native Arizonans are much lower than those of white residents? This phenomenon is an outcome of something called housing inequity, and it isn't just an issue in Arizona. In fact, it's on President Joe Biden's list of national problems to fix during his presidency. A survey done by Washington University's Social Policy Institute found that Black and Hispanic homeowners have been hit harder than their white counterparts since the pandemic began, due to ongoing evictions, foreclosures, and other rent and mortgage struggles. Narrowing the housing gap is one of the Biden administration's biggest goals, related to his call for nationwide equality.
Housing is a right in America, and homeownership is an essential tool to wealth creation and to be passed down to generations.
Biden's recent executive order includes a mandate for the Department of Housing and Urban Development to promote equitable housing policies that will create opportunities for communities of color. But what does housing inequity actually mean, and what does it look like here in Arizona? For starters, housing inequity describes any disparities there may be related to homeownership rates, affordable rental housing, homelessness, and other related hardships. For Arizonans, it's a prevalent setback for Black, Latino, and Indigenous communities, especially those living in rural neighborhoods. This is because they tend to rely more heavily on their homes to generate income and maintain their wealth. These populations need property ownership and affordable rental housing to allow them financial stability and spending power. However, homeownership rates for Black, Latino, and Indigenous Arizonans are much lower than those of white residents. According to a Prosperity Now report, 71.5% of white Arizonans are homeowners, while this percentage is 35.2% among Black residents, 53.8% among Latinos, and 55.7% among Indigenous people. Housing instability in Black, Latino, and Indigenous communities is also being exacerbated by federal laws that force them to relocate and prevent them from accumulating wealth through homeownership. Centuries of displacement and land redistribution policies have promoted segregation by forcing people of color to urbanize and only serving white applicants. However, balancing the housing market may not be a matter of creating new policies, but rather doing away with the outdated ones. The Biden administration says that it plans to get rid of, quote, racially discriminatory federal housing policies that have contributed to wealth inequality for generations. Biden also wants to limit housing discrimination, which can occur when a landlord refuses to rent or sell, or charges more to buy or rent a property to someone based on their race or ethnicity. Housing discrimination also occurs when a property owner says that a property is no longer for sale when it actually is. In the broadcast center, Kelly Donahue, Cronkite News.
An ASU professor is teaming up with leaders from Arizona and California to help educate the Hispanic and Latinx community about COVID-19. Cronkite News reporter Emma Vendenindi explains what his team is doing to make the information more engaging and effective.
We have several sources, internet, TV, and social media, all vying for our attention. This has the potential to create a wealth of misinformation, especially for the Hispanic and Latinx community. But one researcher wanted to change that. With his new initiative, he's hoping to get that crucial conversation going, even through some unconventional means. This isn't your average J-Lo performance, nor is it your average COVID-19 explainer video. This cartoon is just one of the many ways ASU researcher Gilberto Lopez is working to better educate the Latinx community about COVID-19.
I saw that the information about COVID that I was getting through my academic bubble, my academic peers, was completely different than the information that my community back home, the farm working community, was getting.
Through his research, Lopez found that the problem was not about a lack of information, but rather unfounded rumors getting spread. Claudia Corchado, leader of the nonprofit Cultiva la Salud, said that this has a lot to do with the over-trusting nature of the Latinx community.
There's just a lot of myths, a lot of misinformation, a lot of overwhelming information that's out there.
Despite the misinformation, the facts still stand. The CDC reports that the Hispanic population is 2.3 times more likely to die due to COVID-19 than whites. In Arizona, almost 5,000 Hispanics have died. To address this, Lopez contacted several community leaders, universities, and artists from across the Southwest to help spread the word doing what they do best, storytelling.
It's not enough to just translate something from English to Spanish and expect individuals, expect populations to understand it. We need to bring it to the community in a way that's tailored for the community.
Lopez decided to take a multimedia approach. He started by interviewing Latinos about how they get their information. Then, his team created the animations, a project that Lopez said reached over 1 million people. Corchado added that the animations were not only successful, but relatable.
There is an abuelita on there, and we all have an abuelita. And you know you're supposed to listen to your abuelita. You don't question your abuelita. And the fact that we can relate to the characters that are on some of his work is, I think, is the key, and it's more important.
Lopez also recruited Phoenix artist Hugo Medina to paint murals in Central Phoenix that encouraged mask wearing. His latest took 3 months to create, an effort that Medina hopes will promote unity in the community.
I wanted to really show the diversity of the people of America, and even though we're all look differently, we're all from different backgrounds, we're still fighting together for the same cause.
Lopez plans to expand the outreach outside the U.S. into parts of Latin America. But for now, his main goal is to give back to his community.
I'm using the skills and the resources that I have access to do something about it. I'm not going to cure COVID, but if I can make the lives of the people who are being affected by it a little bit better, then I think that's enough for me for now.
Lopez said he'll publish all of the multimedia elements on April 15th. Their website will also include resources about where to get tested or vaccinated for COVID-19. If you want to learn more about their initiative and view their educational material, you can visit covidlatino.org when launched. In the studio, Emma Vandenide, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Break It Down. That's next. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.